Hi, my name is Nathan. You're watching Nice at Dice, and today I am talking about a game called Century Spice Road. Now, normally I'd show you the box for the game, but I don't actually have the box for Century Spice Road because I've stored all the components for the game in the box of its sequel, Century Eastern Wonders. In fact, I have all three games in the Century trilogy. You have Spice Road, Eastern Wonders, and A New World. And this is going to be the first in a series of videos in which I review all three of those games, but then also talk about the various ways those games can be combined, and what are some of the advantages of one game over another, what are some of the advantages of the different combinations, and why you might enjoy one over any of the others. But today we're going to be talking specifically about Century Spice Road, so we're going to go over to the desk. I'm going to show you how the game works, and then we'll come back up here and I'll give you my thoughts on it. So this is the basic setup for a game of Century Spice Road. On the middle of the table, you're going to have two lines of cards. You're going to have these cards, which are your point cards. They come out of this deck, and they're worth points at the end of the game. So as you can see, in addition to the beautiful artwork, you have a number here, and that indicates how many points this card is worth. You're going to play the game until someone has acquired their fifth point card, and then you'll finish out the round. Whoever has the most points wins the game. Now, in order to get those cards that are worth points, you also have these cards which players can acquire, and these cards are going to allow you to basically trade spices. Spices are represented by these differently colored cubes, and these have a order of hierarchy here, with yellow cubes being worth the least. The red cubes are worth more, green cubes are worth even more, and brown cubes are worth the most. Now, each of these different colored cubes is supposed to represent a different spice, and honestly, off the top of my head, I can't remember what the names of those spices are, and it really isn't important to the game. All that's important is that you know that this is the order of value for these different colored cubes. Now, each player is also going to start with a card like this, which represents their trade caravan. The important thing about this card is that it has these little squares on it. It has 10 of them, and each of your cubes that you are carrying with you at the time have to occupy a square on that card. So it limits the number of cubes you can hold on to 10. Each player is also going to start out with a couple of cards in their hand. It's always going to be these two cards, and basically what you're going to do on your turn is one of 4 actions. So turns are very quick. You only take one action per turn, and the actions that you can take are very simple. So one action you could take is you could play a card from your hand. So for example, I could play this card, which just gives me 2 yellow cubes as indicated there. So I would take those cubes from the supply and add them to my caravan. This card allows you to upgrade some of your cubes, increasing their value. So I could play this card to do one of two things. I could take 2 of my yellow cubes and I could trade them for 2 red cubes, which I would put in my caravan. Or conversely, I could instead, put these back, and I could take 1 yellow cube and I could upgrade it twice. So in effect, trade it for a red and then trade that red for a green. And so I upgraded 1 yellow cube to a green cube. So that's basically what this card does. It either upgrades 2 cubes once each, or it upgrades 1 cube twice. That's one thing I can do on my turn. The other thing I could do on my turn is I could take one of these cards, one of these trade cards. So in order to do that, I can always take the one on the left for free. It doesn't cost me anything to get it. I just add it to my hand. And this type of card allows me to trade a specific color of cube for another specific color of cube. It's specific in the color and the amount. So this would allow me to trade 2 green cubes for 2 brown cubes. If I play this card and I have, for example, 4 or 6 green cubes, I can do this effect multiple times for the same action. So I could trade, for example, 4 green cubes for 4 brown cubes. But it would have to be in multiples of 2, and so forth. So that's what this sort of card does. Now, I could get this card for free, like I said, but perhaps instead I would really like this card, which would let me trade 1 brown cube for 2 red and 2 yellow. So if I want this card, what I have to do is I have to take cubes from my caravan, that can be any color, and I have to add them to the cards to the left of this card's position. So I put a cube on each of these cards, and now I can take this and add it to my hand. Once you've bought a card from this line, you're going to slide over any cards to the right of that position, and you're going to fill in any empty spaces. Once I have this card, I can now play it and do its action. Now, the third action I could take on my turn, in addition to playing a card or buying a card from here, is I can rest. And resting just allows me to pick up all the cards I've already played. I have them back in my hand where I can play them again. And finally, the fourth action I could do on my turn is I could acquire one of these. So in order to acquire one of these point cards, I just have to turn in from my Caravan cubes of that color, cubes of the colors necessary to buy the card. So for example, this card, which is worth 8 points, requires 2 yellow cubes and 3 red cubes. If I had those in my Caravan, I could turn them into the supply and purchase this card. Once you've purchased a card, you're going to slide over any cards to the right of it and fill in any empty spaces. And if I buy the card from this position, I also get a silver coin, which I will keep for the end of the game. And if I buy a card from this position, I also get a gold coin that I will keep and be worth points at the end of the game. So again, this would just go here. I would keep it till the end of the game for scoring, and the game ends after someone's got their 5th card and you've completed that final round. And then you get points for all of your point cards. You get an extra point for every silver coin, 3 extra points for every gold coin, and then the cubes in your Caravan are worth 1 point each, except for yellow cubes, which are worth nothing at the end of the game. That's basically how the game works. Let's go back up top, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. So, right away, I can point out that one of the great things about Century Spice Road is that turns are very quick, the gameplay is very fast-paced. You take your turn, and then it's not very long. Even at the highest player count of 5 players, it's not very long before it comes back around to your turn and you're acting again. So that's pretty fun. Keeps things moving quickly. It's fast-paced. It's exciting from that perspective. I like too that the actions that you take on your turn are very simple. You can play a card. You can acquire a card. You can pick up all the cards you've already played. You can get one of those point cards. That's basically it. So those are all very simple to understand and simple to execute. So I like that. You can teach the game very quickly. As you just saw, I explained how the game worked in just a couple of minutes. So, the game can be taught very quickly. And I think that the overall concepts of the game are very easy to understand. The idea that you have these cards in your hand. Once you play them, they go down on the table. You can use an action to pick them all up, and you can start playing them again. What the cards do is pretty simple. You have, cards like this one that just give you those cubes. Super simple. You have the upgrade action, which I find that some people have a little difficulty grasping the idea that they can use upgrades to either upgrade multiple cubes or to upgrade one cube multiple times. But it's not really that complicated, and after a little bit of practice, most people get it. And then you have, cards like this that let you trade cubes of one color for cubes of other colors. And so those are all pretty simple concepts, and just the general concept of getting a certain combination of cubes so that you can trade those in for a point card. Again, all around very simple concepts, easy to understand, easy to explain, and it's just an easy game to play. My one thing about the game that I find sort of detracts from it a little bit is while the basic concepts are very easy to understand, it can be a little difficult to wrap your mind around exactly what you need to do. The game is basically an engine building game, which I love engine building games, so that's really cool. But most engine building games are kind of built around this idea that you want to build an engine that is very good at doing one thing, right? So, for example, you'll have a lot of games where the goal is to, let's say the goal is to get points, and so you have this thing, you get this thing that lets you produce a certain resource, and then you get this thing that lets you turn that resource into money, and then you get this thing that lets you turn that money into points. And that's it. Like, you set up your steps of your engine, so to speak, and then you just run it. And the point is to get that engine assembled and operating as quickly and efficiently as possible, and then you just run that engine until the game ends, right? That's how a lot of engine building games work. But in this game, you are building an engine in the sense that, for example, you have a card that gives you some cubes. You have a card that lets you upgrade those cubes. You have a card that lets you trade cubes of a certain color for a different color, and then you trade in cubes of different colors for points. So you have that sense of like building an engine. But what's different is that the end result, the cubes that you need to trade in for points, is going to be changing every turn, basically. You have some similarities, right? Like, you have these two cards. One of them requires 2 yellows and 2 browns, and the other 3 yellows and 2 browns. So if your engine is good at giving you yellows and browns, you could probably get both of these cards pretty quickly. But there's no guarantee that both of these cards are going to be on the table. And there's no guarantee that somebody else won't be angling for one of those cards. And so you could find in one instance that your engine gets you yellow cubes and brown cubes really quick, and that's great. You can grab one of those cards, but then all the other cards are like, yeah, you need 3 red cubes and 2 green cubes, and my engine doesn't produce red cubes and green cubes, not efficiently anyway. So you really have to build an engine that's very flexible, and that can give you different types of cubes, with some level of efficiency. And that's possible with the cards provided. And I think that's an interesting challenge. It's an interesting twist on the whole concept of building an engine in a game. So I like it. It's not really a complaint, but it is, I think, difficult for new players to kind of grasp, because if I was just explaining, like, okay, you need to find a way to get points, and one way you could do it is you could generate this resource, you could turn that resource into money, you can use that money to buy points over here. Like, that's a simple type of engine to build. I could explain that to someone and they could probably grasp that concept pretty quickly. But with this, it's more nuanced and it's more complicated, and it's harder to build an efficient engine that is very flexible, which is what you need. So I think that it's an interesting game. I like the game a lot. I find there's a bit of like a incongruity there, in that the game is, on the surface, it's very simple, very easy to teach, but it's challenging to grasp what exactly you need to be doing and how to do it. So those are my thoughts on it. It's definitely a game that you can learn quickly, but it rewards repeated plays and taking the time to really kind of grasp the strategy and the different ways you can accomplish that strategy. But yeah, it's a good game. I like it. I like engine building. It's definitely engine building. I like the very simple hand management of it, and just everything else about it. The artwork is beautiful. The production quality is good. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Century Spice Road. Again, my name is Nathan. You're watching Nice at Dice. Thank you so much for watching. You can tune back in probably later this week, and I'll have another video reviewing the next game in this series, Century Eastern Wonders. So come back if you are interested in that, and you enjoy the rest of your day.